Space rippled like disturbed water as the USS Unconventional tore through the fabric of reality, emerging from hyperspace with its massive mechanical tentacles coiled protectively around its spherical core. The ship's arrival sent immediate waves of confusion through the organized lanes of traffic around the Galactic Council's central spaceport, a magnificent structure of crystalline spires and iridescent docking arrays that stretched for kilometers through space. Captain Amanda Brooks stood on the bridge, her weathered hands clasped behind her back, as she watched alien vessels scatter in what could only be described as panic. Their sleek, arrow-straight designs, adhering to the Council's standardized engineering protocols, contrasted sharply with the U.S. Unconventional's biological inspiration. A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth as she observed their reactions through the panoramic view screen. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Jessica Reynolds called from her communication station, her voice carrying a mix of amusement and concern. "We're receiving multiple requests to verify our ship classification. Several vessels are asking if we're experiencing a catastrophic hull breach." She paused, listening to more incoming messages. "And one Centaurian captain wants to know if we're being attacked by a space monster." "Send them our credentials, Lieutenant," Brooks replied, straightening her midnight blue uniform. "And remind them that this vessel is humanity's official diplomatic flagship." She turned to her XO, Commander David Martinez, who was barely concealing his own grin. "Looks like we're making quite the first impression." The U.S. Unconventional's approach to the spaceport caused even more commotion. Its tentacles, each one longer than most standard ships, moved with fluid grace, adjusting their position to maintain perfect balance as the vessel navigated through the designated arrival corridor. The mechanical appendages gleamed under the light of nearby stars, their segmented surface covered in what appeared to be thousands of crystalline sensors. Inside the spaceport's grand reception hall, the welcoming ceremony quickly devolved into barely concealed chaos. Lord Exthar, the Regelian ambassador, stood with his four arms crossed over his ceremonial robes, his insectoid features twisted in what humans would later learn was their species' expression of absolute disbelief. "This," he chittered, mandibles clicking rapidly, "is humanity's crowning achievement in spacecraft design." He gestured toward the massive viewing window where the U.S. Unconventional had taken its assigned position, its tentacles now gracefully curled in a holding pattern. "It appears your species has confused space travel with deep-sea exploration." Laughter rippled through the gathered alien dignitaries. A Proximan delegate whispered loudly about primitive biological thinking, while a group of vegan engineers huddled together, pointing at the ship and making exaggerated gestures of dismay. Captain Brooks stepped forward, her voice clear and confident despite the derision. "The U.S. Unconventional represents humanity's unique approach to solving the challenges of space travel. We believe there's much we can learn from nature's solutions to complex problems." Lord Exithar lifted a drinking vessel in mock salute, his crystalline cup filled with shimmering purple liquid. "Indeed, Captain. Perhaps next you'll design a ship based on your Earth's flopping fish, or maybe a hopping rabbit." He took a sip, then nearly choked as one of the ship's tentacles smoothly adjusted its position, the movement so fluid it seemed almost alive. "I look forward to demonstrating our vessel's capabilities during our stay," Brooks replied diplomatically, though her blue eyes flashed with something that made several nearby delegates shift uncomfortably. The captain knew what they couldn't see: the quantum manipulation fields, the revolutionary space-time distortion technology, the adaptable problem-solving algorithms based on cephalopod neurology. Let them laugh, she thought. They'd understand soon enough. As the ceremony continued, crew members aboard the U.S. Unconventional continued their final systems checks, each one aware that they were sitting on a revolution in space travel. In the ship's engineering section, Chief Engineer Michael Rodriguez patted a bulkhead affectionately. "Let them mock us," he muttered to the purring quantum drives. "They haven't seen anything yet." The Galactic Council had no way of knowing that their standardized approach to spaceship design was about to be completely upended by what they dismissed as a tentacled abomination. They would learn, some sooner than others, that humanity's greatest strength lay in their ability to think beyond the conventional, to find inspiration in the countless solutions that evolution had already perfected. For now, though, Captain Brooks simply endured the mockery with grace, knowing that actions would speak louder than words, much louder indeed. Deep within the U.S. Unconventional's engineering section, Chief Engineer Mad Mike Rodriguez stood before a group of wide-eyed junior officers, his hands dancing through a holographic display that filled the briefing room. The projection showed one of the ship's massive tentacles in cross-section, layers peeling away to reveal its inner workings. "Look here," Rodriguez said, his fingers expanding a portion of the display. Quantum field generators glowed like jewels within the tentacle structure. While those stuck-up aliens are laughing at our primitive design, they're missing something fundamental about nature. He grinned, his salt and pepper beard catching the blue light from the hologram. Evolution spent millions of years perfecting the octopus. We just gave it quantum powers. Lieutenant Sarah Cooper raised her hand, her expression puzzled. "Sir, but why an octopus?" The Regellian ambassador wasn't entirely wrong. We're not underwater. Rodriguez's grin widened. He tapped a control, and the hologram transformed into footage from the ship's classified test runs. The assembled officers gasped as they watched the U.S. Unconventional's tentacles perform what should have been impossible maneuvers. "Space isn't empty," Rodriguez explained, freezing the footage on an image of a tentacle literally bending space-time around itself. "It's a fabric. Conventional ships try to punch through it like arrows. We learn to swim in it instead." He highlighted the quantum field generators. Each of these beauties creates a localized distortion in space-time. Working together, they let us manipulate the fabric of reality like an octopus manipulates water. The footage continued, showing a tentacle gently plucking a disabled satellite from orbit. Another clip displayed 3 tentacles working in concert to create a protective bubble of altered space-time around a damaged section of hull. Conventional ships can only interact with space in one way: push against it. We can grip it, twist it, reshape it to our needs. Commander Emily Peterson, the ship's science officer, stepped forward to add her perspective. "The aliens mock us because they've spent centuries perfecting what they see as the right way to build ships. They've trapped themselves in a technological dead end." She manipulated the hologram to show the ship's neural network. "But we didn't just copy an octopus's shape. We studied how they think." The display shifted to show the ship's distributed processing system, modeled after cephalopod neurology. Each tentacle has its own subbrain, capable of solving complex problems independently, while still coordinating with the central computer. It's why we can perform such intricate maneuvers without overloading our systems. Rodriguez nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. Traditional ships need massive computational power to make even small course corrections. Our tentacles react instinctively, like limbs responding to a dancer's training. The quantum fields are just the muscles. It's the neural architecture that makes it art." A young ensign in the back raised his hand. "Is it true that the Galactic Council tried to deny us docking permission because our ship doesn't match their safety protocols?" "They tried," Rodriguez chuckled. "Then Captain Brooks demonstrated how our tentacles could contain a plasma leak better than their automated systems. Hard to argue with results." He paused the hologram on an image of all 8 tentacles working in perfect harmony. "They think we're primitive because we took inspiration from nature. They forgot that nature has been solving complex problems since before their species learned to write." Commander Peterson added, "The real breakthrough was combining biological principles with quantum mechanics. Each tentacle can generate its own gravity well, bend light around itself, even create localized time dilation fields. We're not just building a better ship, we're redefining what a ship can be." Above them, through layers of advanced hull material, the diplomatic reception continued. The aliens remained blissfully unaware that the primitive vessel they mocked was about to revolutionize their understanding of space travel. Rodriguez closed the holographic display with a flourish. "Let them laugh," he said, his voice filled with pride. "The octopus was around before dinosaurs walked the earth, and it'll probably be around long after we're gone. Nature perfected this design through billions of years of trial and error." He patted the nearest bulkhead affectionately. "We just had the humility to learn from it." The junior officers filed out, their minds buzzing with the implications of what they'd learned. Soon enough, the galaxy would understand why humanity had chosen such an unconventional design. But for now, the ship's true capabilities remained their secret, waiting for the right moment to show the galaxy what human ingenuity could achieve. The diplomatic reception in the Galactic Council's Grand Hall was in full swing when the first warning signs appeared. Lieutenant Reynolds, monitoring ship systems from her station aboard the U.S. Unconventional, noticed the anomaly first, a strange ripple in the quantum background radiation that made her sensors dance with impossible readings. "Captain Brooks," she called through the secure channel, her voice tight with concern. "You need to see this." At that exact moment, the station's emergency lights flashed to life, bathing the elegant gathering in pulses of crimson. The crystalline walls of the Grand Hall displayed automated warning messages in 17 different alien languages. Panic erupted as the translation matrix caught up. "Quantum storm approaching. Severity beyond established parameters." Captain Brooks watched as Lord Exthar rushed to a control panel, his 4 arms flying over the holographic interface. "Impossible," he chittered, mandibles clicking rapidly. "Our detection grid should have warned us hours ago." The station's defensive systems error. The lights flickered ominously. "No, no, no, no. What's happening?" Brooks demanded, her commanding voice cutting through the growing chaos. The Regellian ambassador's compound eyes reflected the emergency lights as he turned. "A quantum storm unlike anything in our records. Our defense grid is failing to compensate for the reality distortions. The automated systems." He trailed off as another surge caused the artificial gravity to hiccup. Through the grand windows, Brooks watched as conventional ships began to power up their engines, attempting to flee. The quantum interference was already affecting their systems. Sleek vessels designed to perfection under Galactic Council standards were now moving like drunk butterflies, their engines sputtering against the growing storm. "The station's shield generators are offline," a Proximan engineer announced, his bioluminescent patches flashing with distress. "The quantum fluctuations are cascading through our power grid. We can't maintain containment." Brooks touched her communicator. "Rodriguez, tell me something good." "Captain," her chief engineer's voice crackled with static, but couldn't hide his excitement. "Those readings, they're beautiful. Our quantum field generators are already adapting to the storm's pattern. The tentacles can match and counter these fluctuations. We cooled." "Save the technical details," Brooks interrupted. "Can we help?" "Hell yes, we can help. The Unconventional was built for exactly this kind of chaos." Brooks straightened her uniform and stepped forward, raising her voice to address the panicked gathering. "The U.S. Unconventional offers its assistance in this crisis." Lord Exthar's laughter was tinged with hysteria. "Your primitive vessel. This storm is overwhelming our most advanced systems. What could your tentacled monstrosity possibly?" A massive surge rocked the station, sending dignitaries stumbling. Through the windows, they watched in horror as a Centaurian cruise ship's engines failed completely, the vessel beginning to drift toward the station's delicate spires. "We don't have time for pride," Brooks snapped. "Your conventional ships can't maintain stability in these conditions. Ours can. Make your choice, Ambassador." Another surge. Warning klaxons screamed as the station's structural integrity began to fail. Lord Exthar's mandibles worked silently for a moment before he gave the equivalent of a Regellian nod. "Rodriguez," Brooks commanded, "bring us alongside. Show them what an octopus can really do in a storm." Through the windows, the assembled aliens watched as the U.S. Unconventional powered up, its tentacles uncoiling like a sea creature awakening in deep water. The quantum storm's leading edge was visible now, a curtain of reality-warping energy that made the very fabric of space shimmer and twist. As conventional ships fled or floundered, the human vessel moved with deliberate grace toward the heart of the crisis. Its tentacles began to glow with their own quantum field signatures, preparing to match the storm's chaos with controlled chaos of their own. "Fascinating," whispered a vegan scientist, their earlier mockery forgotten as they watched the unconventional ship position itself between the station and the approaching storm. "They're not fighting against the quantum fluctuations, they're preparing to dance with them." Captain Brooks allowed herself a small smile as she rejoined her crew aboard their ship. "Let's show the galaxy what humanity's primitive design can really do," she said, settling into her command chair. "All hands, prepare for storm containment protocols." The quantum storm bore down on them like a wave of unraveling reality. But unlike every other ship in the sector, the U.S. Unconventional wasn't trying to run away. It was ready to swim. The U.S. Unconventional's tentacles spread wide as the quantum storm struck, each mechanical limb glowing with otherworldly energy. Captain Brooks stood at her command station, watching as reality itself seemed to bend and warp around them. The ship's neural networks hummed with activity, each tentacle's subbrain processing millions of calculations per second. "Main quantum field generators at full power," Rodriguez reported from engineering, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "Beginning counter-resonance sequence." Through the view screens, the assembled alien dignitaries watched in stunned silence as the human vessel began what could only be described as an impossible dance. The first tentacle twisted in a graceful spiral, generating a localized gravity well that deflected a surge of quantum energy away from the station's vulnerable shields. "Look at that precision," a vegan engineer whispered, their earlier derision forgotten. "They're not just blocking the storm, they are redirecting it." Two more tentacles moved in perfect synchronization, their quantum fields weaving together to create a protective barrier. The ship's bio-inspired neural network allowed each appendage to react independently to the storm's chaotic patterns while maintaining perfect coordination with the others. "Detecting power fluctuations in the station's core," Lieutenant Reynolds announced. "The storm is affecting their containment fields." "Tentacles 3 and 4, compensate," Brooks commanded. The ship responded instantly, two massive limbs curling around the station's power core section. Their quantum fields adjusted in real time, stabilizing the dangerous energy fluctuations. Lord Exthar watched from the station's command center, his compound eyes reflecting the dance of energies outside. "Impossible," he muttered. "They're manipulating quantum fields with the precision of a stellar engineer, but with the adaptability of a living creature." The storm intensified, throwing conventional ships around like leaves in a hurricane. But the U.S. Unconventional moved like a creature in its natural habitat. When a surge of quantum energy threatened to tear through the station's residential section, three tentacles wove together, creating a complex field pattern that diffused the energy harmlessly into subspace. "Rodriguez," Brooks called out as new warnings flashed across her displays. "We've got a Centaurian vessel caught in the storm's gravity eddies. They're being pulled apart." "On it, Captain." The chief engineer's fingers flew across his controls. "Tentacles 7 and 8 deploying now. Watch this." The ship's final two appendages uncoiled with fluid grace, reaching out through the quantum chaos. One tentacle created a stable corridor through the storm, while the other gently wrapped around the stricken vessel. The aliens watched in amazement as their supposedly primitive design accomplished what their most advanced tractor beams couldn't, safely manipulating the ship through quantum-disturbed space. "How are they maintaining stability?" a Proximan scientist demanded, running scans on the human vessel. "The quantum interference should be overwhelming their systems." Commander Peterson, monitoring the science station, allowed herself a small smile. "We're not fighting the quantum fluctuations," she explained. "We're flowing with them. Each tentacle's field generator can adjust millions of times per second, adapting to the storm's patterns just like an octopus adapts to water currents." The ship continued its mesmerizing performance, its tentacles moving in what appeared to be a choreographed ballet through reality-warped space. Each movement served multiple purposes, deflecting dangerous energy, stabilizing critical systems, and protecting vulnerable ships and station sections. Quantum storm intensity peaking, Reynolds reported. All tentacles operating at 97% efficiency. Captain Brooks nodded, watching as her ship handled the crisis with elegant efficiency. The same design that had drawn mockery and laughter just hours ago was now the only thing standing between the station and complete destruction. Nature's solutions, refined by evolution and enhanced by human ingenuity, were proving their worth in the face of cosmic chaos. Status report from the station, Reynolds announced, a note of pride in her voice. Lord Exithar is requesting a full technical briefing on our remarkable engineering achievement once the crisis is contained. Brooks smiled. Tell him we'd be happy to demonstrate how humanity's primitive understanding of nature has its advantages. She watched as another tentacle gracefully redirected a surge of quantum energy. Right after we finish, saving everyone, of course. The U.S. Unconventional continued its dance through the storm, each movement a testament to the power of thinking beyond conventional wisdom. In the space around them, the quantum chaos raged on, but within the ship's protective embrace, nature and technology had found their perfect harmony. Commander Peterson's voice cut through the controlled chaos on the bridge. Captain, these readings don't make sense. The storm's quantum signatures, they're not random. Her fingers flew across the science station's controls, bringing up complex wave patterns on the main display. There's a pattern here, an artificial one. Captain Brooks leaned forward in her command chair, studying the shifting data. Explain. The quantum fluctuations are too ordered at their core, Peterson continued, highlighting specific sequences. Natural storms show chaos at all levels. But this, she paused as new data streamed in. This is manufactured chaos. Someone built this. The U.S. Unconventional's tentacles continued their complex dance through space, but now each movement revealed more about the true nature of their opponent. As the ship's sensors penetrated deeper into the quantum storm, they detected something at its heart, a massive crystalline structure, ancient beyond comprehension. Multiple station sections reporting critical structural failures, Lieutenant Reynolds announced, her voice tense. The quantum effects are intensifying, targeting specific frequencies now. It's like the storm is learning. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm system. Because it is learning. Captain, that thing at the storm's center. It's some kind of automated weapon platform, and our attempts to counter it are teaching it how to break through our defenses. Through the view screens, they watched as sections of the massive space station began to twist in ways that violated the laws of physics. Reality itself warped around the structure, creating impossible geometries that threatened to tear the station apart. All hands, Emergency Protocol 7. Brooks commanded. Rodriguez, give me options. The weapons using our own quantum fields against us, the chief engineer reported. Each time we establish a containment pattern, it analyzes and counters it. But there was a moment of intense calculation. Captain, remember how an octopus can squeeze through any hole bigger than its beak? Brooks' eyes widened with understanding. You want to thread our quantum fields through the gaps in its attack pattern. Exactly. We can't overpower it, but we can outmaneuver it. Permission to reconfigure all tentacles for maximum flexibility. Do it. The ship's tentacles began moving in new patterns, their movements becoming even more fluid and unpredictable. Instead of trying to block or deflect the quantum attacks, they began weaving between them, creating a complex web of stable space within the chaos. Look at this, Lord Exthar breathed, watching from the station's command center. They're using the weapon's own attack patterns to create safe channels. It's like watching someone dance between raindrops. The ancient weapon responded by intensifying its assault. Sections of the station groaned as reality buckled around them. But for every new attack pattern, the U.S. Unconventional's tentacles found new ways to adapt, their bio-inspired neural networks learning and evolving strategies in real time. Multiple hull breaches detected in sectors 7 through 12, Reynolds reported. Station's automated containment fields are failing. Divert power to tentacles 3 through 6, Brooks ordered. Create containment bubbles around the breached sections. 7 and 8, maintain station structural integrity. 1 and 2, keep probing that weapon's defenses. There has to be a weakness in its pattern. The ship's tentacles split their focus, some becoming literal fingers plugging holes in the dying station, while others continued their elaborate dance with the quantum weapon. Each appendage operated independently yet in perfect harmony, demonstrating the true power of the ship's distributed intelligence. Engineering to bridge. Rodriguez's voice carried equal parts excitement and concern. Captain, we're detecting massive power fluctuations from the weapon. Whatever ancient civilization built this thing, they designed it to escalate until the threat is eliminated. We're running out of time. Brooks watched as her ship's tentacles moved with impossible grace through the quantum chaos, buying precious seconds for the thousands of lives aboard the station. They had proved their design's worth against natural challenges, but now they faced something far deadlier, an ancient weapon designed to unmake reality itself. All hands, she announced, her voice steady despite the growing danger. Prepare for emergency maneuver pattern Delta. We're not just dancing with this storm anymore. She took a deep breath as the weapon's next attack pattern began to form. We're going to lead it in a dance of our own. Energy spike. Lieutenant Reynolds' warning barely preceded the blinding flash from the Regellian flagship's engine core. The massive vessel's quantum containment fields flickered and died, creating a cascading reaction that threatened to tear reality apart for half a sector. Captain Brooks watched as Lord Extar's personal vessel began to break apart, its perfect engineering now working against it as the ancient weapon's influence triggered a catastrophic chain reaction. The Regellian ambassador's voice crackled over the emergency channel, thick with desperation. Our containment systems are failing. Evacuation is impossible. We have less than 2 minutes before total quantum core collapse. Rodriguez, Brooks called out, her mind racing through possibilities. What happens if we wrap all 8 tentacles around their ship? A moment of stunned silence from engineering. Create a full quantum bubble. Captain, we've never attempted anything like that at this scale. The power requirements alone mold. Not what I asked. Chief, can we do it? Rodriguez's laugh carried a hint of madness. Oh, we can do it. But we'll have to drop our own defensive fields. One hit from that weapon while we're exposed. Better than watching 10,000 Regellians die. Brooks straightened in her chair. All hands, emergency maneuver pattern Omega. Prepare for temporal containment procedure. The U.S. Unconventional's tentacles uncoiled from their defensive positions, leaving the ship vulnerable to the ancient weapon's assault. With fluid grace, all 8 appendages reached out toward the dying Regellian vessel, their quantum field generators powering up to maximum capacity. Multiple critical alerts. Reynolds reported as the first quantum surge from the weapon struck their unprotected hull. Structural integrity failing in sections 4 through 7. Hold position. Brooks commanded. Rodriguez, start the temporal fold. The ship's tentacles embraced the Regellian vessel like a protective parent, their quantum fields interweaving in ways that defied conventional physics. Inside engineering, Rodriguez's fingers danced across his controls, orchestrating the most complex manipulation their ship had ever attempted. Creating temporal bubble. Now. Reality bent, twisted, and finally separated around the Regellian ship. Inside the quantum bubble created by the U.S. Unconventional's tentacles, time itself began to flow differently. What would be seconds outside became hours within. Lord Extar found himself standing in his engine room, watching in amazement as emergency klaxons seemed to slow to a crawl. Through the viewport, he could see the human ship's tentacles glowing with impossible energy, maintaining the bubble of altered space-time. We've given you 3 hours of relative time. Brooks' voice came through, distorted by the temporal differential. That should be enough to prevent the core collapse. But we can't hold this forever. Rodriguez materialized on the Rigelian bridge via emergency transport, toolkit in hand. Well, he said to the stunned alien crew, "Are we going to stand around admiring the temporal physics, or are we going to save your ship?" Outside the bubble, the U.S. unconventional groaned under the strain of maintaining the temporal field while exposed to the ancient weapons attacks. Each hit caused more damage to the unprotected vessel, but the tentacles never wavered in their embrace of the Rigelian ship. Hull breach on Deck 3. Reynolds called out. Emergency force fields holding. Barely. Captain. Commander Peterson interjected. I'm detecting a pattern shift in the weapons attacks. It's focusing entirely on us now, like it recognizes we're the greater threat. Brooks allowed herself a grim smile. Good. Better us than the station full of civilians. She watched as another quantum surge splashed against their weakening hull. How's our engineering team doing in there? The relative time differential meant that hours passed inside the bubble while minutes ticked by outside. Rodriguez and the Rigelian engineers worked frantically to prevent their core from collapsing, racing against a clock that moved at different speeds depending on where you stood. Quantum containment restored to 60%. Lord Exthar's voice finally crackled through, pride temporarily forgotten in the face of survival. The human engineer. His understanding of quantum field manipulation is unprecedented. He's reconfiguring our systems to match your ship's adaptive patterns. Time differential failing, Peterson warned. We can't maintain the bubble much longer. Just 10 more seconds outside time. Rodriguez called back. We've almost got it. The U.S. unconventional's tentacles began to glow white-hot from the strain. Their quantum field generators pushed far beyond their designed limits. But they held, just as nature's own octopi could maintain their grip even in death. The mechanical tentacles refused to let go until their task was complete. With a reality-bending flash, the temporal bubble collapsed. The Rigelian vessel emerged intact, its core stable and its crew alive, thanks to hours of work accomplished in minutes of normal time. Engineering team returning to the unconventional, Reynolds reported. Rigelian vessel's quantum signature stabilizing. They're going to make it, Captain. Lord Extar's voice came through once more, but this time without a trace of its former condescension. Captain Brooks eyed. We owe you more than we can ever repay. Save it for later, Ambassador, Brooks replied, turning her attention back to the ancient weapon that still threatened the station. We're not done dancing yet. The aftermath of the crisis transformed the Galactic Council's Grand Reception Hall into an impromptu scientific symposium. Chief Engineer Rodriguez stood before a holographic display of the U.S. Unconventional's quantum manipulation systems, surrounded by alien scientists who had traded their earlier scorn for intense curiosity. The breakthrough came when we stopped fighting nature, Rodriguez explained, expanding the image of a tentacle's neural network. Earth's oceans spent millions of years perfecting the octopus. We just had to be humble enough to learn from it. Lord Extar moved closer to the display, his compound eyes analyzing every detail. But the quantum field manipulation, the temporal bubble, how did you achieve such precise control? Rodriguez grinned and brought up new schematics. That's the beauty of it. Each tentacle has its own distributed intelligence, modeled directly on cephalopod neurology. They can solve complex problems independently while still working in perfect harmony with the central system. The vegan chief scientist, who had openly mocked their design hours earlier, now traced the quantum field patterns with a trembling appendage. You've achieved something we thought impossible. Our rigid adherence to standardized designs. We've been limiting ourselves all along. Commander Peterson stepped forward, adding her expertise to the discussion. The quantum field generators were only part of the equation. The real innovation was the bio-inspired control system. She highlighted the neural pathways running through each tentacle. An octopus can solve complex puzzles, squeeze through tiny spaces, and manipulate objects with incredible precision. We replicated that flexibility in both hardware and software. Show them the adaptation protocols, Captain Brooks suggested from her position near the back of the room. She watched with quiet pride as Rodriguez demonstrated how the ship's systems learned and evolved in real time. Each tentacle's quantum field can reshape itself millions of times per second, Rodriguez explained, playing back data from their encounter with the ancient weapon. Like an octopus changing its color and texture to match its surroundings, our fields continuously adapt to any situation. A Proximan engineer raised several appendages in excitement. The temporal bubble you created around our ship, that was not pre-programmed. The ship developed that solution in real time. Exactly. Rodriguez beamed. The distributed intelligence system saw the problem and found a natural solution, just like an octopus figuring out how to open a sealed jar to get at the food inside. The assembled aliens watched in fascination as he played back recordings of the ship's performance during the crisis. Each tentacle moved with fluid grace, solving complex problems independently while maintaining perfect coordination with the others. The quantum fields flowed like water, adapting to each new challenge with organic precision. We've been approaching space travel all wrong, Lord Exthar admitted, his earlier pride forgotten in the face of undeniable evidence. Our standardized designs, our rigid protocols, we've been trying to impose order on a chaotic universe instead of learning to work with that chaos. Captain Brooks finally stepped forward to join the discussion. Earth's oceans taught us that lesson long ago. Nature doesn't waste energy fighting against chaos. It learns to swim in it, to use it, to thrive in it. The implications are staggering, a Centaurian physicist mused, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with excitement. If we applied these principles to our own designs, combined with our existing technology, that's exactly what we're hoping for, Brooks smiled. The galaxy is too vast, too complex for any one species to have all the answers. We need to learn from each other, and from the universe itself. Rodriguez pulled up one final display. The original design sketches for the U.S. Unconventional, inspired by countless hours of studying Earth's marine life. Everyone laughed when we proposed building a ship based on an octopus. But nature has been solving complex problems since before any of our species learned to write. We just had to be wise enough to pay attention. The alien scientists crowded around the designs, their earlier derision transformed into genuine admiration. The quantum storm had proven that conventional thinking had its limits. Now, as they studied the elegant solutions inspired by Earth's oceans, they began to understand that true innovation meant being humble enough to learn from unexpected sources. Perhaps, Lord Exthar suggested, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully, it is time for the Galactic Council to reconsider its standardization protocols. The universe has more to teach us than we imagined. As the discussion continued, Captain Brooks exchanged knowing looks with her crew. Their primitive design had done more than save lives. It had opened minds across the galaxy to new possibilities. Sometimes, it took a crisis to prove that the best way forward was to think differently. The Galactic Council's emergency session transformed into something unprecedented. The Grand Chamber, with its soaring crystalline spires and hovering platforms, hosted representatives from every major spacefaring species. But unlike the reception days earlier, there was no mockery in their voices as they discussed the events that had reshaped their understanding of space travel. Captain Brooks stood at the central podium, the U.S. Unconventional visible through the massive windows behind her, its tentacles moving with gentle grace as it conducted routine maintenance on the station's quantum arrays. The ancient weapon we encountered revealed a crucial truth. She addressed the assembly. The universe is not a place of order and straight lines. It's a realm of chaos, adaptation, and endless possibility. Our ship survived because it was designed to embrace that chaos, not fight against it. Lord Exthar, speaking for the Rigelian delegation, raised all four arms in the traditional gesture of respect. The temporal bubble your vessel created saved not only my ship but my entire crew. We questioned your design, mocked your inspiration, and yet, he paused, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. And yet nature's wisdom, combined with human ingenuity, achieved what centuries of standardized engineering could not. The chamber erupted in discussion as species after species pledged to re-examine their approach to space travel. The Proxima Assembly announced plans to study Earth's deep-sea creatures for inspiration. The Vegan Collective proposed a joint research initiative into bio-inspired quantum field manipulation. Chief Engineer Rodriguez, standing with Commander Peterson at the chamber's edge, watched as their revolutionary design sparked a technological renaissance. They're already talking about combining our quantum tentacle technology with Centaurian crystal matrices, he whispered excitedly. Can you imagine the possibilities? Speaking of possibilities, Peterson replied, gesturing to a new holographic display. The Rigelians want to collaborate on a project. They're fascinated by how Earth's octopi can shape-shift through tight spaces. They think we could apply those principles to create ships that can phase through quantum barriers. Captain Brooks rejoined her crew as the council voted unanimously to establish the Interstellar Innovation Institute. The facility would combine the best aspects of all species technologies, with a special focus on learning from natural phenomena across different worlds. Humanity hereby accepts the position of Chief Innovation Advisory Board, Brooks announced to enthusiastic approval. We look forward to exploring the galaxy's biological wonders together, finding new inspiration for our journey among the stars. Lord Exthar approached the human delegation after the session. Gone was the arrogant diplomat who had mocked their vessel. In his place stood a humbled scientist eager to learn. Captain Brooks, our preliminary studies of your ship's performance during the crisis have revealed something extraordinary. The way your quantum fields adapted, it wasn't just programming. Your ship was actually learning, evolving its responses in real time. Just like an octopus solving a puzzle box, Rodriguez grinned. Nature spent billions of years perfecting these solutions. We just had to be smart enough to pay attention. The view through the chamber windows showed the first fruits of this new cooperation. A Proximan vessel, its hull already modified with tentacle-like appendages, practiced quantum field manipulation alongside the U.S. unconventional. The two ships moved together in an elegant dance, sharing knowledge through action. The ancient weapon taught us all a valuable lesson, Brooks reflected, watching the impromptu demonstration. The universe doesn't care about our preconceptions or our pride. It rewards adaptation, creativity, and the wisdom to learn from every source available to us. As if to emphasize her point, the U.S. unconventional's tentacles performed a complex series of movements, creating a cascade of quantum fields that shimmered like an aurora in space. The Proximan vessel attempted to mirror the pattern, its newly installed appendages moving with increasing confidence. We're entering a new age of exploration, Lord Exthar observed, one where we learn not just from each other, but from every corner of the universe itself. Captain Brooks smiled as she watched more ships arrive at the station, vessels of all shapes and sizes, each already incorporating elements inspired by Earth's oceans. The ship that had once been a laughingstock had become a symbol of innovation, proving that sometimes the best solutions come from the most unexpected places. To the future, she raised a glass in the Earth tradition, a gesture now copied by aliens across the chamber. May we never stop learning, never stop adapting, and never be too proud to learn from a humble octopus. The U.S. unconventional's tentacles caught the light of a distant star, their gentle movements a reminder that in space, as in nature, the most successful designs are those that embrace the chaos and dance with it.